Welcome to the Wake Up Call for the Soul podcast with Bill and Claire, where we go deep and wide on subjects intended to support our awakening to greater truth, beauty, goodness, freedom, joy, peace, harmony, and love. In the second episode of our podcast, we continue our conversation that started with meditation as we shift now into talking about prayer. Is there anything else coming up for you that you'd either like to ask or to express or to share, kind of in this container that we're calling meditation right now?
Yeah. This might be kind of transitioning us to the next topic, but one of my big questions is what you feel like the difference between meditation and prayer is, because I have heard people um, argue that either meditation is a type of prayer or that prayer is a type of meditation or that they go together or can go together. And I know
Mhm.
there's so many different thoughts out there in the spirituality and religious world. And I just
Mhm.
want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, yeah. No, thanks for that. I think for me, I think that so I kind of I to me meditation and prayer are and again this is just for me, right? Because just like
Mhm.
you said, there's all these people out there that they're the same thing, they're different flavors of the same thing, they're completely
Right.
different, one is spiritual and one is religious, and there's
Exactly.
all
Right.
right,
Right.
there's all this stuff. So I'm just, you asked me and I love it, you asked me for my take on it, so this is Bill's take, and this is in no way inclusive of everything related to prayer and meditation by any stretch. It's just how Bill kind of looks at these things at this point, because I know that when people use a word like meditation, it basically means something different for every single person that uses it. Same thing
Yes.
with prayer.
Yes.
So yeah. So anyway, so for me, I think so I consider them both to be potential spiritual practices. Okay. So and I do, and I kind of have this distinction, and I'll, within my own mind, but it has to do with, like, when I use the words, what I mean by them. So when I use a word like meditation, what I'm usually referring to is someone engaging in a spiritual practice that has as one of its kind of significant or important goals the quieting or the silencing of what I'll call the material mind, kind of the brain, and those other energetic and etheric aspects that are connected to the functioning of the brain, the material mind. It's connected to the spirit body and all that stuff. But so that's an important part of it. But I appreciated what you said earlier too, because right, there are people who are using meditation as their kind of road to connecting with what I'd call source, or with what they would call higher self, or sometimes those are one and the same thing for people. Everybody's got their, that's the fun of spirituality. It's like, hey, it's free for all. Like, everybody's kind of on their own path that way and stuff. So yeah, so that and it's interesting too, because like in your own experience, like you're doing, like I was talking about with Dr. Deepak Chopra, this idea of like, well, you're meditating, but then you're dropping. He uses this kind of metaphor of sort of dropping or entering an intention into that field of possibility, in order to then engage in a form of, I'll call it manifestation. Okay, like
Right.
bringing these things into our experience through the calming of the mind and things like that. So that's my attempt at some kind of wonky nutshell on kind of how I look at the meditation side or pole, or I think it's really much more like a Venn diagram, where there's a lot of overlap between these things for most people, and everybody's going to lean, in one direction or another. So I'll shift to the prayer side for myself. So I I call what I do to myself, I call it prayer. And so when I'm engaging in prayer, what I'm doing is, and I put some thought into this before we had this conversation, to try to be like, oh, how, is there a way to succinctly kind of describe, what prayer is for me? And so this is my attempt at a succinct description or definition of what, when I use the word prayer, what I mean by it. And so for me, prayer is the capacity gifted by Source to communicate, commune, and contribute with Source and all. So,
Mm.
so that's my attempt at a sort of a inclusive definition of what I mean by that word. And so, um, like when I was, when I was a kid, praying it was the thing that you did in order to get something. So I think of it
Yeah.
as sort of vending machine source, right? Like, oh, well, and back then I would use a word like God or something. Yeah, I still do, but I do my best to be a bit more inclusive and open these days. But when I was a kid, I'd be like, oh God, I want this, or fix this, or get rid of this, or like it was,
Hmm.
and it's like you pull the handle on your prayer there, and you don't know what's going to come up on the slot machine, right? You may hit
Right.
the jackpot and your prayer is answered, or you don't and it's not, and um,
Right.
and then it's like, well, why wasn't it answered? And then you have all these ideas and and things, and it's like, is there something wrong with me, or is there no God, or blah blah blah. You go down all these rabbit
Right.
holes. Yeah. And so yeah, so as I've engaged in my practice over these years, and I think for me too, and this is something, it's not said, it's implied in the definition that I tried to come up with for what prayer is for me. But it's this distinction between, so in my phenomenology, like there's an aspect of my being that I'll call, you can call it your core self, some people call it higher self, soul, that there's this aspect of my being that is invisible to normal kind of perceptions and things, but that is made in the, and this is kind of biblical language, in the image and likeness of the source. And so I tend to call that part of myself soul. And so for me, my prayer practice is me seeking to express those things within my soul um, that are calling for expression. So they can
Mm.
be the expression of desires and hopes, and and I mean, in my prayer practice, there's one thing I'm really going for, which is right now I'll call it the source's divine love. So we'll call it that for now. So when in the center of my prayer practice is me from the depths of my soul expressing this desire to receive the source's divine love. So that's like my central practice in my prayers, and that's the thing that I always ask for in my prayer. Like I always express the desire for that, and my sense is that Source desires to give this to me, right? Like it's not like Source is saying like, oh, no, you can't have this stuff. I don't want to give it to you. It's like, no, Source wants to bless me and bless everyone with this stuff, but Source, being Source, is very respectful of our ability to choose, what people call free will. And so
Hmm.
therefore, and this is a whole other episode too, in the conditions on the planet at this time, like we have to ask, because to make it clear to Source, like, yeah, I really do want it. Like,
Right.
so the Source is like, yep, okay, you want it? Okay, I'm giving it to you. And then there's a whole phenomenology behind that we won't get into. But that's really that's at the center of my practice. And then when I'm in that flow, as I sense that I'm receiving this, we could call it an energy, a power, whatever, that it's flowing into and through my soul, my being, then a lot of times I will enter in, almost like what you're talking about with your meditative practice, where you're engaging with these intentions. I'm doing something similar. Like I might be within that flow and I'd be like, boy, I could really use some guidance here. And so that's where this kind of, in my definition, I have the word communicate in there. The communing part is really the communing in that substance, that soul substance that Source offers and that I'm asking for, Source wants to give me. But then also I had the word contribute in there too. And of course it's three C's, which I thought was really cool, plus the word
Hmm.
capacity. But anyways, so like, so the contribute part is like, if I know people, if I know situations, if I'm aware of things that could use light or love or healing or peace, whether it's an individual situation, someone close to me, far away, family, friend, unknown person, a global situation, whatever, that then I can express the desires that I have within that flow, trusting that those expressions of my desires and my intentions within the flow of that essence then are bringing in some way, shape, or form benefits into those either individuals' lives or collective situations or things like that. So, okay, wow. Yeah, I just said a lot. So I'll be quiet right now. And
No, that was good. I'm trying to think. I have a question.
yeah, I didn't expect to go all there. Like that was okay. But that's Bill's spiritual practice in a nutshell. That's what I've
Yeah.
been doing for the whatever past 25 plus years is that practice. But yeah. Woo.
Do you ever feel like you've opened yourself to something non like something non-tangible, something from beyond coming through? Like, because you know how I mentioned when I had been meditating, and I do pray, but for some reason I haven't quite figured out my definition of both of those things. But
Yeah.
when I was meditating and I felt like there had been something that came through and was removing that blockage, or the time where
Mm,
I felt like there were things on either side of me holding me up. Like, do you feel like when you
mm,
pray, you're open to
yeah.
stuff from beyond happening or coming through? I don't know quite how to word that.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, no, I think it was so interesting because your experiences that you expressed related, either directly or indirectly connected to your meditative practice. Um, that's kind of part and parcel, like those kinds of experiences, similar things, obviously different things for different people and all that. That's kind of right. That's part of my world when it comes to this practice. So, like synchronicities, the awareness of things that I otherwise wouldn't be aware of, like and again, these things will happen lots of times in prayer, but sometimes even outside of it, like spontaneously. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I mean, like a really common experience for me when I pray is I will feel I'll obviously feel sources love flowing into and through me. Like that's kind of a given. That's just I'm grateful to be wired that way that I can perceive that stuff because not everyone at this point is apparently wired to
Right.
experience that. But I get to experience that. But then like I've over the years I've kind of realized like what I sense or I feel when they're typically angelic beings that will join me in my prayers, like they're praying with me, they're praying for me, they're ministering to me and things. So like I'll oftentimes feel them like it's really hard to describe, but I feel them a lot of times as like an aura around my head, like this
Ooh, yeah.
this kind of it feels like some kind of pressure or movement in terms of like my magnetic field or my energetic field. I don't know what it is, but I feel it like I feel it as if it's a physical thing. So I'll feel them near me. So that's pretty common. And then yeah, so okay, I said that. Um, yeah, and sometimes like I'll know, like I'll have a in my prayer, one of the intentions I put in there is for the healing or the resolution of maybe, like a minor ache or pain that I have, or even of a situation, maybe uh something that needs healed from the past, or maybe it's a relationship with someone else, or I have this question. I'm like, I go into prayer and I'm like, I don't know what to do about this, and so one of the intentions I put into the prayer is like, dude, what do I do about this?
Yeah.
And so then like either during the prayer or afterwards or what, like I'll be like, oh, like and it's different, right? It could be like, oh, you don't have to worry about it, it'll take care of itself. Or, oh, yeah, if you just do this thing, it should be fine. Or like it just becomes like clear, almost like you're talking about these synchronicities, like these things that were completely invisible. They were outside of my awareness. It was as if they didn't exist. So I enter into prayer. So my consciousness, my awareness has, through the prayer experience, been altered somewhat. And I've also received help. I've received help from Source and from all of those beings of light and love who are working with and playing with Source and helping me. Like I get all those benefits, and then to the extent that I'm open or receptive, like we could say mentally, or maybe even in other ways, I don't know, then these things come, like I'll come out of a prayer and be like, oh, that doesn't hurt anymore, or oh, that
Yeah.
problem has resolved itself, or right, someone calls me and it's like, hey, I figured out how to do, oh, okay, cool, like right. So they're synchronicities, but for me, like there are these obvious responses to my prayer practice, like I mean there's no doubt, like because you know what I mean, like I know
Yeah.
because there it is. It's like before prayer there was this thing, after prayer there's not that thing, and it's like, okay, the only thing I did was pray, so it's somehow connected to that, and Source being Source and all these things being what they are. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. That I like what you were saying about kind of like feeling something in your, I don't, what did you say,
Oh,
electromagnetic or just your
like in
aura field or
you could
something
just say my field. Yeah,
in your
just you could
field.
say my
Yeah.
field. Yeah.
And, there have been times where I've prayed and this kind of goes back to around the time where that situation that I mentioned earlier with the
Hmm.
person in my life had
Yeah.
happened. And I was being so incredibly critical of myself. And it wasn't
Mm,
just because of that situation, but it definitely didn't help.
yeah.
And I had prayed it and I was like, I just need something calming to be with me. I need some sort of guidance or love or peace. And I
Hmm.
felt like for a couple days, I want to say,
Yeah.
um, it felt like there was something almost angelic that was with me. And it was maybe vaguely
Hmm.
masculine, but I don't think it really matters. And I felt like when I was being really critical of myself and suffering from these intrusive thoughts, I felt like it was there and kind of helping me reframe how I was thinking about these things. I would have a thought
Hmm.
that was super negative, and it almost like took it and spun it. It was like, well, what about this? And I wasn't hearing voices. It's hard to
Hmm.
describe. It was more
Yeah.
just like this presence that was kind of taking the edge off and allowing me to
Hmm.
rethink things. Um, but that was, I think, very special. And that was something that I experienced from praying, not from my
Hmm.
typical like meditative
Yeah.
practice. So I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what now that's an awesome story. And no, you were definitely receiving help, support, guidance in that. And right, all of
Yes.
our faculties are different. So there are people who have, and one, like people have this gift of clairaudience. So they hear
Hmm.
spirit with a greater level of clarity than your average bear most of the time. And then
Yeah.
there are people who see spirit more clearly, or these kinds of things. And and I count all these people amongst my friends, who have all these really awesome gifts and things. And my I tend to experience things more in terms of feelings, like within or around my body, like I said, like the
Okay.
field. I mean, I receive visions, and that could be a whole other episode and stuff like that. But everybody's unique in terms of those kinds of things. But no, that's right. And it's one of these laws that, like, and this is one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast, is that, like, one of the things that most people don't understand is, like, it's the fundamental law of the universe. Like, if you have a heartfelt desire, like something you deeply need or desire or want or need, like if you allow yourself to express that, it will be responded to. Like, this is a law of the universe. It's not like I was describing, with the slot machine of prayer. It's
Right.
not like that. It's like, no, I mean, it doesn't. it doesn't claim, the law doesn't state that you will get exactly the response that you expect or hope for, but the response will come, like, and it will be whatever is for the best and highest, because source and all those who work directly with source know these things way better than we do. So I mean, right, you tell that beautiful story and it's like, oh, you express this desire, I need this, I want this, whether you did it in prayer or meditation, whatever word you did, you expressed a desire. And that desire, because everything in the cosmos, everything that exists from source, who made all of it, to everything that exists, because source made it, is designed to do that. Like it's perfectly designed to do that. Yeah, so no, I have no doubts that you received awesome help in response to that. And the thing that we forget as humans, because of our experience in what I'll call the human condition right now, is we forget that we can do that all the time. Like we, any
Yes.
moment, like we can do that. I want to see a shooting star. Like, no, I really want to see a shooting star. Like, or I really would like, my social life to get kicked up a notch, whatever it is. Or I'm seeking healing for this, or I want to accept myself more, or self-love, or whatever, peace, or all of these things are, they're like freely available from source and from all those who work with and for source. And we, in the human condition, we have these crazy ideas like that, well, you have to work hard, you have to earn it, you have to, you have to pay money for it, you have to whatever, some form of sacrifice or giving, or something, in order to receive these blessings. And so I'm grateful for us to getting to this place in this conversation where it's like,
Yes.
people, it's a law, like you ask, you receive. And you have just given excellent examples of that. I hopefully have given some myself, where
Mhm.
hopefully people who hear this can be like, wait, you mean I can, like, if I really want or need something, I can ask for it and I'll get help with it? Yeah. Like you totally
Yeah.
will,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a bit of a journey to feel like I'm worthy of asking for something. I feel
Hmm.
like,
Yeah.
just in my personal life, I have messed up so much in my life, and there are so many things I feel so much shame for, like very, very deeply.
Hmm.
And so when I want to have a spiritual experience, or I feel like I need
Yeah.
to ask for something, I feel like, oh man, like I feel like I'm not worthy. Um,
Yeah.
and that's been something that I've had to work on. And through other areas of spirituality, I've kind of been able to work through it a little bit. It's kind of hard to explain.
Hmm.
But also kind of something that I thought about when you were talking was that, how do I word this? When when I felt that presence for a couple days after I had prayed, I think that my practice in meditation helped me be able to perceive that.
Hmm.
Um, I think meditating,
Yeah.
it has kind of helped me like have this like little antenna for the
Hmm.
spiritual,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
um, kind of helped me tune in a little more. I don't think I would notice all these other things, the synchronicities and everything else, if I hadn't really kind of been practicing that and being open to it. And that's not to say that someone has to meditate in order to do that.
Hmm.
Maybe there's
Right.
other ways, but for me, that's what was helping me.
Hmm.
Um, and I just think
Yeah.
it's so cool. And I think I'm interested in prayer as well. I think for me, I have to work through some blockages that I kind of have mentally surrounding prayer. And I think part of that's just from growing up like
Hmm.
in the religious community and having some
Yeah.
connotations there. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's all super interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I see all the time how people have this idea that prayer is a religious practice.
Hmm.
To me, it is not. Prayer is a human capacity. It is, like I said in my brief definition, it is gifted by source to each and
Right.
every one of us, this capacity. And there's no, religion that owns it, that there's no formula, that it's really about this potentially direct connection, communion, relationship, communication between our deepest selves and source, and source with us. um But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. That's one of the things I was hoping would come out in this conversation is that it's a human capacity. It's
Yes.
because of who made us and who we are. But yeah, no, I get that because yeah, there's a lot of very specific prescriptions out there for words and formulas and
Yeah.
incantations even. I mean, it's all there's in some of these things. I mean, there's quite a bit of magical thinking going on. Like if you don't say
Hmm.
these words in this way with this intention, then no, 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 no. It's like, oh my gosh, well,
Yes.
that's so much fun. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. See,
And it
and
drives
that's
you away. Hmm.
yeah, see, and for me too, prayer is like when I use words like communicate, commune, contribute, like they don't, those words do not say that it even has to involve words or
Hmm.
even like thoughts as we think of them. That it can be this more pure yearning or longing of ourselves for the source. And and that's the thing. Most people, when they hear the word prayers, they think of postures, that you're doing it kneeling or with your hands folded or blah, 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 whatever, that these things are somehow important. Whereas for me, it's all about what I call the orientation or the attitude of the soul. And then the other thing that people usually think of, so they think of, what do you do with your eyes? Are they open and closed? What do you do with your hands? Are they folded or not? And then what are you doing with your knees? Are you sitting or are you standing or kneeling? And what are you doing with your mouth? What are the words coming out of your mouth? And yeah, and I mean, like the word prayer for me has basically nothing to do with words. I mean, I use words mostly to be helpful to other people. Like in my own
Ooh,
prayer practice,
interesting.
yeah, in my own
Okay.
prayer practice, like they're, I'm not saying they never come or that I never express them, but they're far down the list of what I associate with when I use the word prayer. Like words are just, they're potentially helpful, but they also, because they are so what's the word? They're so central to the functioning and how our material minds right now operate us as opposed to us operating our material minds that they, words a lot of times create a lot more problems than they solve.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to follow up to, this issue of worthiness, of self-love, these kinds of things. I mean, this is also something that and I think we all, because we're brought into this very traumatizing pseudo reality, uh, all of us have these wounds, these hurts, these traumas and things, and because of and this is a whole other episode, what's available, like it's very easy for us to go to the place of that, oh, I'm wrong or I'm bad or that I'm not worthy or uh, that there's something inherently fundamentally erroneous or
Yes.
flawed or damaged about me that cannot be resolved by any force or
Yes.
power, right? So and all of this stuff I just said, it's all a lie, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like that deep down, but our minds, they carry these things and it's like, oh, I don't want to feel that way again. So I'm going to set up these defense systems and these programs and stuff in order to prevent me from having to experience that pain again. But the thing I've discovered on my own journey so far is like, oh, all those systems that I've set up to defend myself from getting hurt, they actually, through the law of attraction, again, a whole other episode we could have,
Hmm.
um, they actually attract the very thing that they're supposed to defend you from. And so then you're
Yeah.
constantly confronted with situations where you feel shameful, where you can't love yourself, where you're judging yourself, where, all these things without realizing that, or at least at certain stages of awareness before I realized that this is what was going on with me. It's like, oh, okay. I thought that this was keeping me safe from that, but it's actually no, it's like a magnet. It's drawing it to me. And so the
Yes.
only the only way to not draw it to me is to heal what's underneath that's feeding that program or that defense system, like because then once the wound is healed, then I don't need the protection anymore, because yeah, okay. That again, whole other episode, so I probably need to stop there. But yeah. So, anyways, no, I'm excited for you because you're on this journey, and I feel like you're I mean, we're all figuring this stuff out, right? Like we're all working through it and realizing, well, what is this and how's this working? What are the laws? And and then what needs to happen? And that's why I have my prayer practice, because I know that the source's love is the thing that heals everything within me that's attracting all these things I don't want. And then and like I it's like I called it a defense system. I mean, a defense system is intended to keep certain things out. The problem is that it keeps out all kinds of good stuff too, right? Like you could have a plane flying in for supplies, but you have an air defense system set up that can't tell the difference between a friendly plane and an unfriendly
Yes.
plane, and it shoots them all down. So you don't get your
Right.
supply run. Like, I mean, if that metaphor makes sense. But so by healing what brought the defense system into existence in the first place, then you don't need the defense system anymore. And then what happens is you're not attracting the stuff you don't want. And then you can allow in all the good stuff you do want, that you do need, that are true responses to your actual desires and your intentions and things. So,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the self-love journey it's tough in these conditions because there's just so
It
much
is.
running around telling us that, and I mean, like, I don't even know when I realized it. I'm like, wait a second, you mean like worthiness, this entire concept is a human invention. Like there's no actual divine reality to it, like we made this thing up and we act like it's real, and there's no actual reality to it except to the extent that people believe that it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It goes deep. It goes deep.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and that's part of my hope for our conversations too, is just parsing out some of this stuff, like, because I mean, because of the conditions, it's so hard for most of us most of the time to tell what's like really real and what's sort of temporarily real that people
Yes.
just made up, and it only continues to exist because enough people still agree that it's an actual thing, like worthiness or whatever. I mean, take your pick of any of these sort of limited concepts and things. And then there are also divine manifestations of these things that look nothing like what the human words for them are. Again, a whole other episode. So I'm stoked. Anyways, I feel like we got plenty to talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh boy. So I feel like we're getting close to the end of our window here,
Sure.
time wise. So um I guess what I'd like to do before we officially wrap here is, Claire, is there anything that you would just like to say or express before we kind of, bring this to a close?
Ooh. I just I want to reiterate that I'm just really excited to be on the journey that I'm on and to have someone like you just to bounce ideas off of and hopefully learn from, um, and to have someone that I can talk to about experiences I have without people, you know, getting that weird look on their face like, what are you talking about? Being um, just it's hard when there's a lot of people in my life that are very anti anything that they think is like woo woo or new age or spiritual or anything non-tangible.
Mhm.
So to be able to kind of explore this in like a safe environment is very nice. And I hope that as I progress through my own journey and learn things that I'll be able to share with other people. Because I keep saying this, but I really do feel like I'm at the beginning and I don't have a ton of knowledge built up yet, but I have a lot of hope. So I'm excited.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, no, basically I feel very much the same way. I think I'm excited for these conversations, for what we can kind of learn from each other, what we can share or reinforce or support in those kinds of things, and hopefully, in whatever way that these conversations or parts or pieces of them may be shared with other people, that hopefully that things that we talk about, that we express, that deeply matter to us, that have been meaningful and helpful to us in some way might be meaningful, helpful, or like you said, bring hope to people who are really struggling, wondering like, is this any of this real? Does any of it matter? What's the
Right.
point kind of a thing. So, and those are thoughts and feelings that are very available within the human condition at this time. So yeah, so I'm grateful for this space and this opportunity this way too. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what all kinds of cool rabbit holes we go down and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So cool. All right.
absolutely.
Yeah, so no, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope you have too. Our next episode will be touching on I'll say reincarnation as a topic,
Yeah.
and maybe what and all things in some way related to that. I'm excited because I think that that'll be a really cool opportunity to
Yes.
explore some other and different spiritual laws that have been hinted at in this conversation, but um, that we weren't able to dig into. And I think in a reincarnation conversation, we'll have some real space to dig into some of those spiritual laws and realities and things. So here's my attempt at a next episode teaser cliffhanger. I hear they do these things in podcasts or whatever. So reincarnation, is it a gift, a punishment, both, or neither? And so we thank you so much for listening to Wake Up Call for the Soul with Bill and Claire. Until next time.